The universe sent you here for a reason. Listen closely, everything you thought was stable is about to shift. This isn't coincidence, it's an invitation. Your attention is the signal, your belief is the amplifier, what you feel right now is the seed of what you'll become. Stay with me, we're aligning science and spirit to change your life. You wake up with the same ache, the same questions, and the same resistance. The problem isn't that life is unfair, it's that your inner world and outer world are misaligned. You work hard, make plans, and follow sensible advice, yet something essential keeps slipping through your fingers: momentum. Momentum is the invisible currency of manifestation. When it is missing, desires stall; when it returns, doors open with a quiet inevitability. Too many people treat manifestation like a charm or a wish, divorced from the habits and nervous system work that actually produce results. They imagine a thought as a click that changes reality instantly, but most of life shifts through sustained attention and small aligned acts repeated until new pathways emerge. There is another layer to the problem: confusion about agency. Some people despair because they think everything is predetermined. Others frantically try to control outcomes, exhausting themselves in the process. Both responses come from a misunderstanding of how human attention interacts with possibility. Modern physics shows that at fundamental scales, potentials exist as fields of possibility that become more defined when observed. Spiritual traditions teach that attention is sacred. The mismatch arises when attention is scattered, contradictory, or anchored in fear. Fear creates a feedback loop. It's a low-bandwidth signal that narrows perception and repels expansive outcomes. Belief without calibration is mere fantasy. Action without inner alignment is brute force. Another common issue is the cultural push toward visible proof. We live in a results-oriented society, and yet inner recalibration often precedes external signs by days, weeks, or months. The impatience leads people to abandon practices right before momentum forms. That is tragic because small, consistent practices accumulate into a changed baseline, a nervous system more receptive to possibility. When that baseline shifts, your actions become different. You notice opportunities you previously missed, you speak with a different tone that gets different responses, you energetically attract collaborators and circumstances aligned with your intent. A practical symptom many notice is jittery attention. You set an intention while also narrating why it won't work. That contradictory signal acts like a damper on the system. Your conscious mind may say, "I want abundance," while your implicit pattern expects scarcity. The field responds to the louder, more persistent signal, which is often the subconscious script. Solving manifestation problems therefore requires three things: awareness, calibration, and cultivation. Awareness is honest bookkeeping of where you are emotionally and mentally. Calibration means shifting beliefs and physiological states so your internal signal matches your conscious intent. Cultivation is the steady practice that turns new patterns into second nature. Emotion is central to this problem. Most spiritual teachings underplay the role of practical emotional regulation. Yet emotion is the bridge between thought and action. It is the visceral language your nervous system uses to translate intention into behavior. If your nervous system is dysregulated, high on fight or flight or anarchic distraction, your intentions will have a hard time being heard by the world. The solution starts with small, repeatable practices that rebuild coherence in the body and attention in the mind. Without that, even the best ideas dissolve into frustration. Finally, there is an existential problem: meaninglessness breeds half-hearted attempts. When people do exercises mechanically, without felt significance, outcomes are weak. The most powerful manifestations I've witnessed began when intention contained a story, a compelling why, a felt reason for change that braided emotion and purpose. When belief, nervous system, and action align around a felt why, the world listens. The problem, then, is not mystical, it is methodical, physiological, and narrative-based. Solve those three, and manifestation moves from an abstract hope into practical, testable reality. Discovery often begins at the edge of failure. My discovery came after a year when everything I planned unraveled, projects collapsed, relationships cooled, and my energy felt fragmented. I had read books on quantum physics and practiced meditation for years, but the results were inconsistent. Then I met a physicist who spoke like a poet and a yogi who quoted experiments. They described reality as a sea of potentials, and observation as the pebble that ripples the field. More than metaphor, I learned the disciplines that make observation disciplined: attention, measurement, and iteration. That combination, a scientist's method with a mystic's heart, became the hinge of my discovery. The scientist in me wanted reproducibility and records. The mystic in me wanted depth and surrender. Together they demanded a practical experiment: choose small, measurable outcomes, apply coherent attention and embodied practices daily, and track results honestly. When I did this, something astonishing happened: patterns emerged. Certain practices produced consistent shifts in sleep quality, decision clarity, and synchronicities. It wasn't magic in the sensational sense, it was the field responding to disciplined, emotionally anchored attention. A turning point was a simple exercise we tested in a small group. Each morning for 2 weeks the group practiced a 5-minute coherence breath, set a single, specific intention for the day, and recorded one small aligned action taken before noon. We treated it like a scientific pilot study: control conditions, baseline measures, and shared journaling. At the end of 2 weeks more than 70% of participants reported statistically significant improvements in mood. And many recorded tangible outcomes: a conversation that led to a job referral, a delayed payment arriving, or a relationship conversation that finally opened. What struck me most was not the headline results but the consistency of inner change: a quieter nervous system, more discernment, and a softening of catastrophic thinking. The discovery also clarified a major misinterpretation of quantum language. When people latch on to terms like observer effect or entanglement and turn them into one-off affirmations, the nuance is lost. In physics, observation has context, apparatus, and feedback. In practice, observation in life requires discipline. You must notice not only external changes but your internal state with curiosity and measurements. The discovery was that when spiritual practices are combined with a protocol of testing and honest record-keeping, belief becomes better calibrated and outcomes become verifiable. Emotionally, discovery is messy. Many people resist measuring spiritual outcomes because they fear falsification, the possibility that something they hoped was true is not. But the opposite is true: measurement, done compassionately, liberates you from false hopes and guides you toward practices that actually work. My discovery was both personal and communal: personal in how my inner world shifted, communal in how shared experiments amplified results. When multiple people sustained coherent attention toward a shared intention, outcomes were amplified beyond what solo practice usually produced. That suggested a strategy: scale by linking intent to community practice, while keeping measurements simple and honest. Discovery also taught that small rituals matter. A 5-minute daily check-in, a short breath sequence, and one modest action create a scaffold. These micro-rituals preserve attention long enough for quantum-like shifts. Those subtle reconfigurations of habitual expectation, to accumulate. Discovery gave me practical humility: big shifts often look quiet at first. The task is to steward attention, remain curious, and keep testing. When you do, you transform wishes into experiments and hope into usable intelligence. Method is where many teachings collapse. I developed a method that is simple enough to do daily and precise enough to produce measurable change. It has 3 pillars: observe, align, act. Observe means to notice your current internal state with gentle curiosity. Many people rush to force outcomes without first diagnosing their own vibration. Start by naming your feelings, assessing mental clarity, and noting any conflicting narratives. This diagnostic step creates the necessary feedback loop. Align means to bring your physiology, belief, and attention into a coherent field. Techniques here are practical: breath work to regulate the nervous system, brief visualization anchored by sensory detail, and targeted cognitive reframes for persistent limiting beliefs. Act is the most underrated pillar. Too often, spiritual communities emphasize inner work and neglect concrete behavior. Acting in alignment means tiny, non-grandiose steps that reflect your new baseline. It could be a 5-minute reconnection call, an email that clarifies intent, or a small financial move that signals trust in new possibilities. The method insists on measurable outcomes. Pick one small metric to track each week. That could be the number of meaningful conversations you have, 5 nights of quality sleep, or one incremental revenue milestone. Measurement transforms abstract hope into accountable practice. Practically, begin each morning with a 3-part routine: 1 minute to ground and breath, 3 minutes of journaling a clear intention with sensory detail, and 1 intentional action to take that day that aligns with the intention. The breath protocol is simple. Inhale for 5 counts, hold 2, exhale for 5, hold 2. Repeat for 5 rounds. Then journal your intention as if it is a small, concrete scene: where you are, who is present, what sensory details exist. This sensory-rich specification primes the brain to notice related cues. Finally, commit to one aligned action before noon. Small acts create momentum. Another practical exercise is the Coherence Challenge, 3 days of collective attention. Invite one friend, or a small group, to practice the 5-minute coherence breath together, synchronously if possible, and to share outcomes in a common journal. The simple act of coordinated attention amplifies signal strength. A variation is the evening reset. Take 5 minutes to note 3 micro-wins from your day and 1 clear intention for the next morning. Micro-wins accumulate into confidence. Intention resets attention. The method integrates scientific curiosity by encouraging hypothesis testing. Treat each intention as an experiment with a baseline, a practice, and an observation window. If outcomes are muddled, tweak the practice and record new data. This iterative approach steers you away from dogma and toward what works in your life. It also honors spiritual openness. Stay humble, stay curious, and let the field surprise you. Emotionally rich stories anchor the method. I once coached a man named Jordan who had drained his energy building someone else's dream. He began with 5 minutes of breath and 1 tiny action: a sincere apology to a estranged family. Over weeks his nervous system softened, and practical doors opened. A freelance client reappeared, and an old partnership rebalanced. The changes were not instantaneous fireworks, but quieter reweavings of trust and choice. Stories like Jordan's demonstrate that the method is not about flashy results. It is about restoring integrity between what you feel, think, and do. Transformation is the natural outcome when practices are sustained. People expect overnight miracles, but transformation is usually a quiet reordering that accumulates. The first changes are internal: increased calm, sharper intuition, and a steadying sense of purpose. When your inner field stabilizes, your outer life begins to match the new baseline. Imagine a house where the thermostat is fixed and previously sporadic power now flows steadily. Small appliances begin to function reliably. In practical terms, you make clearer choices, show up with steadier energy, and your relationships adjust to the new frequency you are broadcasting. Transformation also reconfigures identity. You begin to pronounce a different internal story, from "I am someone who waits" to "I am someone who experiments." That shift in identity changes behavior, which changes context, which changes results. It is a loop that amplifies itself. The emotional component of transformation is often subtle grief and steady gratitude woven together. As old safety strategies fall away, you may mourn former certainties, but gratitude grows for newfound possibility. This is normal and healthy. A powerful exercise during transformation is the 3-day evidence log. For 3 consecutive days, record your baseline mood each morning: 1 core intention, 1 aligned action, and 1 observable outcome. At the end of the 3 days, review the log for patterns. This practice trains attention and builds confidence in small-scale manifestation. Another exercise is the neckline check. Pause midday, place a hand on your heart and notice whether your intention feels like pressure or invitation. If pressure, soften with breath; if invitation, continue with gentle action. Transformation often shows up first in relationships and money patterns. People attract different collaborators, receive offers they previously overlooked, and notice opportunities that were always present but invisible. Practically, transformation demands you renegotiate boundaries. You will say no more often to requests that drain your field and yes more readily to invitations that match your new baseline. That realignment feels risky at first but creates long-term expansion. I'll share one emotional example, a teacher named Maya who had internalized scarcity from childhood. After months of consistent practice, the coherence breath, sensory-rich intentions, and small daily alignment actions, she began to receive invitations to speak and teach that had been absent for years. The change was not a single lightning strike, it was the result of recalibrating belief, physiology, and action until the field responded. Her financial reality changed in tandem with her willingness to accept offers and to price her work differently. Transformation rearranged both inner conviction and outer opportunity. Transformation also trains you to tolerate ambiguity. Because you now expect the field to respond in complex ways, you stop demanding immediate, linear validation. You learn to read subtler signs, a tone change in a conversation, a new lead that appears after you lowered a tense boundary, a dream that offers a fresh idea. These signs are the field's language. Learn to listen. When transformation solidifies, it creates a multiplier effect. Your small daily practices become a way of life that others notice and often ask about. That leads to the final stage, mission. Mission expands beyond personal gain and becomes a covenant with life itself. When you experience consistent energetic realignment and measurable outcomes, the impulse to keep it to yourself fades. You want to share because you remember how lost you felt before someone handed you a map. I remember a woman named Alicia whose life had narrowed to routines and muted hope after losing her job and the sudden death of her father. She began the practices not because she believed in quantum rhetoric. Because she only wanted a small feeling of steadiness. Over months, steadiness turned into clarity. She re-entered the workforce in a role that matched her values and started a weekly small group practice to support other mid-career professionals. Her story is not unique. It is archetypal of what happens when individual transformation is tendenced outward. The mission is practical: teach accessible practices, encourage disciplined experimentation, and create supportive communities where people record results, troubleshoot together, and celebrate small wins. This mission blends science and spirit by inviting methods that can be measured, repeated, and refined. For example, we can run simple intention experiments within neighborhoods or workplaces, set a shared intention, practice coherent breathing for 5 minutes as a group every morning for 2 weeks, and record one observable metric such as the number of helpful interactions or team decisions made. The core ethical principle is radical transparency. Share what you do, including failures and mixed results, because honest records build trust. Scaling the mission requires modest infrastructure, digital spaces for sharing journals, simple experiment templates, live group practices, and localized coaching circles that honor cultural differences. It also requires scientific curiosity, collect data, run simple A/B style comparisons, and publish communal findings in plain language. Invite skeptics as partners in inquiry. When a skeptic becomes a collaborator, the work gains credibility and richer insight. Emotion fuels the mission. Stories create invitation points more powerful than abstractions. If you feel called to this mission, start small and stay consistent. Run personal mini-experiments, invite one friend to join a 3-day coherence challenge, or host a short group practice and record the outcomes. Use a journal to log intentions, breaths, emotions, and actions. Track one measurable outcome, quality of sleep, number of meaningful conversations, or a small professional metric. Treat the process like hypothesis testing and celebrate micro-wins. If these words reached your soul, it's not an accident, it's alignment. The universe brought you here because your shift has already begun. So now, don't just listen, activate. Type "I'm ready to shift" in the comments right now. That's your signal to the universe that you're stepping into your new reality. Make sure to subscribe to Stories Book. Because every story here isn't just told, it's encoded to awaken you. Turn on the bell so you never miss the next frequency. Your transformation has already started. And remember, the universe is still listening. Milky Way.